So please give a warm welcome to Deputy Commissioner Brian Williamson.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here with this esteemed panel. Craig Lesser, and I won't say Commissioner Lesser, I'll show you in an example, hopefully here, one of the most outstanding economic development projects in the nation. He oversaw that and helped streamline state government. Commissioner Black, constantly seeing the vigor and the growth in the agricultural community, and I know at DCA we want to help local communities be a part of that, and Secretary Kemp, the regulatory reduction is just phenomenal, and DCA wants to be a part of that, and I can mention that if it comes up in the questions. Let's see if I can, I want to talk to you about your local development authority. We saw the show of hands. All of you are fairly aware of your local development authorities. We'll be talking about that. And then Craig Lesser's discussion of knowing what you have there at the local level is just critical. We have a lot of local governments in Georgia, and it can be a little bit of a challenge compared to other states that don't have as many local governments. When you get that opportunity, how do we seize it? And, you know, as you can see, we've got over 600 local governments. Leadership with a strategic vision. And again, you've heard it before, but where do you want to go? Where do you want to take your county? What policies do you want in place? Developing that strategic vision is going to be critical. And there are a number of different ways you can do that. You've got a lot of state agencies, including DCA, that would love to be a part of helping you do that, and we can talk about that. Collaboration versus competition. With 600 local governments in Georgia, sometimes things get a little competitive, and we understand and we appreciate that. But collaboration is the name of the game now at the local government level, and if you do get that opportunity, if our Department of Economic Development has that prospect that they're bringing around the state, collaboration with your cities, collaboration with counties that adjoin you will be absolutely critical for you to show that business that, hey, this is a good place for that private investment. The development of sites and properties, we deal with a lot of real estate issues at DCA, but it's imperative that you've got, and again, we've heard it here a few moments ago, you've got a site where if that business does want to expand, you can give them the water, the sewer, the internet, the infrastructure. And again, you can do that through the private sector. We've got wonderful private developers in this state, and you can have private developers that may be willing in some markets to take that on. We've had a rough few years, but they may be willing to come in and make investments, and you as a county can help support them by getting the water, the sewer, internet, and I'll show you an example through an authority where just basic public safety issues can be critical. And then, of course, we've got the, you know, the land use and the zoning. You can help streamline the local processes for them to not have to deal with a lot of red tape. And I know the competitiveness committee that we've discussed, we heard a lot about the local red tape and zoning and things, different departments in some of our more urban counties that businesses might have to go to. There are ways we can streamline that. But again, infrastructure is something that development authorities can help with. Roads, water, sewer, the airport, even rail spurs, and I'll have an example of that here shortly. And then you'll hear a lot about the local workforce issues. We've got a lot of state agencies that do a wonderful job helping you grow that workforce. We've got a wonderful, if not one of the premier technical college systems in this state. We've got wonderful workforce development programs, wonderful universities that are turning out just, you know, graduates that could start that business. But you as a local government might be able to help that, and we'd be glad to talk to you about that. Workforce development centers. We have a lot of counties that have actually made some investment in these areas. And then, of course, importantly, the business climate. What do your taxes look like? What does that local regulations look like? It's a state issue, and again, the state, I think, is under the governor's leadership, and Governor Perdue before that, we're starting to address some of the state regulations, and hopefully you see us making progress. I know DCA, we have the ultimate flexible planning rule now. We don't mandate local planning, we just streamline those rules. It's flexible. You can plan if you want to. We encourage you to, but you don't have to. It's not mandated. And then incentives, and I'm here literally with some of the experts on incentives. Commissioner Craig Lesser, as commissioner, could certainly talk to you about that. But in almost each deal we see, whether it's the smallest business or the largest corporation, they want that solid business climate, but they will often ask, are there any incentives? And we'd be glad to field some questions about that. And then quality of life, public safety, education, health care. What does your downtown look like? Is it maybe something you could work with your city to help improve your downtowns in your area? We can talk about that. And of course, housing, affordable housing for workforce. And again, development authorities can be a critical component in all of these issues. Some of you will have different types of development authorities. When we talk about public-private financing and IRBs, I know that's an industrial revenue bond. Essentially, we're talking private financing, but you using that local authority to help arrange the site where that private financing has an easier conduit to the business, and there might be some incentives that are streamlined in that. Many of you probably have statutory development authorities, and you'll see the list there. I won't go through it, but there are many specialized development authorities that, due to their enabling legislation, again, you may want to look at your authorities, and then if you've got a county seat there that you're working with, look at their authorities. And again, collaboration and being able to collaborate between your local governments is the name of the game. Some of you may have constitutional development authorities, and those of you that do, that is a really special governmental entity that you have. Many of them have broader powers than the statutory development authority, and you'll want to work with your local board and your local attorneys on that to maybe understand those powers. And of course, Carl Vincent, DCA, and a lot of different entities are willing, and the utility companies are willing to help you understand how to use those powers. Let me say one thing. You're in charge of appointments to a lot of different commissions, local boards. You really need to take a look at your local appointments, and people that understand that business balance sheet, that business income statement, and what it takes to run that private business day to day are important. It's important that your appointments know private business, that they understand it, they appreciate it, but also attorneys. You may have wonderful public servants, attorneys that understand that development authority process. We encourage you to consider them. And accounting and financial management is important. But consider that. And then, of course, you've got the wonderful Carl Vincent Institute that can help provide training to some of that board. And we'd be glad to chat with you about some of the training. And what I want to do very quickly is just give you two quick examples of how a development authority has been used. And we literally pull these examples from thousands of examples. But the development authority is a critical component in creating that positive local business environment where private investment can be made. And a small percentage of your economy might flow through that authority. It's typically going to be your larger deals, but it's an important component. And the example I have here for you is a simple corrugated cardboard manufacturing facility, $24 million. The business provided 120 jobs. In this instance, we had a local development authority do a $28 million industrial revenue bond issue. The banks, or in this case, the local businesses, purchase those bonds The authority's a conduit for private financing, and we conducted a sale leaseback with the local authority to give some incentives to that business to come in and locate. And again, in this case, the manufacturer, the private business, has total control of his business and that property. He does it through the contract, but we're able to provide a few incentives. And here, we partnered with the Department of Economic Development. They were leading this project. They recommended we do a $250,000 incentive grant to assist that manufacturer purchase machinery and equipment. And it was rolled up into the bond, and they got some preferential financing that you can't do directly to help them expand. Again, it was machinery and equipment. Also, there was a property tax abatement. And in Georgia, there's very few ways to undertake property tax abatement, but a development authority is critical to 95% of the opportunities you will have if you want to provide a little incentive there. And in this case, a relatively small project, instead of South Carolina getting this project, it came to Georgia. So you had a few, couple hundred jobs there. The other project, then Commissioner Craig Lesser oversaw this. And again, the same type of authority. You've got a $24 million project. You've got a small development authority. It's got a board. It may exist on paper. We also had a small development authority down in West Point, Georgia a few years ago. Again, not a huge amount of capacity, but they have changed the world for West Georgia. That regional economy is something that a lot of nations and a lot of other states are just tremendously envious of, and it was done through a local development authority with the same type of sale leaseback deal that you just heard on the smaller deal. $450 million in initial private investment. Again, the companies often purchase their own bonds, but Kia in this case had control of the property, and they were doing what they do best, which is building an automobile manufacturing plant and moving forward. But they did that through that local authority. And at this point, that's over $1 billion in private investment in this state, 3,000 jobs at the main plant, and over 7,500 jobs scattered throughout Georgia. And we've even assisted probably Alabama just a tad, but there is tremendous private investment that occurred as a result of that project. And again, the way that deal was structured, the state was able to assist Kia, do some rail spurs, do some incentive grants. It was a little more expensive in this case, but we helped them with equipment, the rail spur, the property tax abatements were there. And again, Georgia won Kia, and there's still a lot of very envious states on that deal. And I think, Craig, we're getting into more investment there at the local Kia plant. Also, here's another example. We heard about broadband, and you can use development authorities in ways that may not be quite as straightforward. But in rural Georgia, we had heard for years, and these projects are a few years old, but Georgia ranked in the lower third in states in the nation with E911 service to its citizens. And a lot of counties in this case felt like that was an impediment to economic development. And through the One Georgia Authority, and we were able to, and Laura, I believe that was under your leadership at that point, through the One Georgia Authority, we were able to use development authorities to help basically buy assets, again, lease them back, but in this case, it was E911 service that was done on a regional basis, and be glad to answer any questions about that. But we've also done similar projects for broadband. Some of the fastest broadband in this state is owned by development authorities that are leased back to private sector providers. And I won't go into detail on some of this. I will say on the agricultural front, we would love to partner with you as a local community, and Commissioner Black has some wonderful programs. If you have industries beyond the farm gate, call the state and talk to us about helping those industries expand. You can use the development authorities for that. We also have some other wonderful programs that can be used. And in talking about alleviating local red tape, I hope you got your pencil. I want to challenge you here. It can be used everywhere, but we are doing more and more opportunity zones around this state where local enterprise zones can be one of the local tools. And you can use them as a standalone program, a local enterprise zone, or you can incorporate it into a state opportunity zone. But OCGA 36887, y'all jot that down. We would love to experiment with some counties about alleviating local red tape using that provision. And I won't read you the statute, but you can see it there. You can look at your local ordinances, and that statute, if you've got an enterprise zone, within that zone, you can maybe push the envelope a little bit on some red tape reduction. We'd love to work with you on it. And again, look forward to your questions. Those are the websites, but there are no bad questions with this, so y'all challenge us.